Disclaimer. To the Pharisees and Karens out there.
How dare you!
All guests on this show do not reflect the opinions of the host. The purpose of this show is to have interesting conversations, stretch our minds, and grow.
Not what we want!
If you are looking for an echo chamber, viewer and listener discretion
is advised.
You talk about extreme.
What is happening and what is up? Hold out your glass, because we're about to fill it up.
Join us as we travel and explore the vast unknown. It's a hero's journey with dragons to slay, damsels to save, and innumerable treasures to hoard. Torches high.
Look at it from a different perspective.
Hey guys, what is happening and what is up? Hold out your glass, because we are about to fill it up. Welcome to the Prometheus Lens Podcast, the place where the conversations are always enlightening. I am your host, Doc Brown, and here we like to use the allegory of the Prometheus Lens to take a second look at everything. Well, hey, if you're new to the channel, welcome to the hero's journey. Be sure and hit that like button and smash that subscribe button. Be sure to check out this banner down below with all of our social medias at their various platforms. That would be much, much appreciated. Well, hey guys, I got somebody on the line that I think you're going to thoroughly enjoy. This is a first-time guest. Hopefully this is a first of many, because this guy's an intelligent guy. This guy's got a big hat rack. He's got many hats, many professions, but like I said, hopefully this is the first of many. I'd like to welcome to the show Dr. Ward Sanford. Dr. Ward, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I actually just got introduced to you through, I can't remember if it was a publisher or a mutual friend, but someone had introduced me to you, and I actually looked you up and listened to a couple of your interviews, so I'm excited to sit down and talk with you today. But for the listeners that's not watched any of your interviews or seen any of your material, just kind of give us a synopsis of who you are, what you do, and what's your specialties.
Okay, well, I've been a Christian all my life, but went into a scientific field, geology and groundwater, underground water. Got my PhD in 1983 from Penn State, came to work for the U.S. Geological Survey, Department of Interior, so I spent 39 years doing research on water resources, groundwater resources, but I've always been interested in biblical history, been to Jerusalem, got very interested in the history of Jerusalem, and into the writings of his historian named Flavius Josephus, who lived at the time that Jerusalem and the temple was destroyed in 70 AD, and discovered some very fascinating things he had written. He was an eyewitness to everything and involved in everything that happened, and decided what really we needed to do was turn that whole story into a 4-part novel series. So I got some professional writing help, and we now have a 4-part series called Cry for Jerusalem that follows all of the main characters through the events that occurred up to and including the destruction of Jerusalem and its temple in 70 AD.
Well, what kind of got you introduced to Josephus and got you to decide to actually go down the road of historical fiction?
So let's see, I first visited Jerusalem in the year 2000 and went around and got very fascinated by the Temple Mount there. It's got the golden dome of the rock on there that people recognize, where somewhere there the Herod's temple used to be at the time of Jesus. And once I started reading into history and different ideas, like where they thought the temple was, I discovered everybody started quoting this historian named Josephus. And I guess I had heard his name. But then what I found out is people had different ideas. And if what Josephus said supported their ideas, they would say, yeah, look, Josephus says that. But if Josephus didn't support their ideas, they would say, well, yeah, Josephus got it wrong. So I'm starting to think, well, let me go try to read this guy for myself, see what I think. But if you've ever tried that, you'll pick up a giant book called The Works of Josephus, which is very dense and was translated from the Greek into English back in the 1700s or something. So it's really kind of hard to read.
It's like a Bible.
I found a modern English translation of one of his books called The Jewish Wars, and that encapsulates this whole time period. And that was much easier reading. So I got reading into all of the drama that was happening leading up to the rebellion in Judea against the Romans, and all of these things that happened, and so many incredible details. I just couldn't believe nobody had heard of this before. At least I hadn't, and most people I know kind of know 70 AD as a date, and that's about it. So thinking, well, I bet you if this was put into historical novel forms, I bet people would want to read it. I mean, I like reading historical novels. That's a much easier way to learn history than trying to read it from a history book, right? So that's what got me going on this.
Well, yeah, that's the thing with me, which, like Phil Robinson, I'm a Southern man, so I kind of identify with him a little bit. He said he was always a C+ average guy. That was me. I was never into reading anything that I was not forced to read,
right,
until like maybe around 2012, and then I don't know, I got exposed to this supernatural worldview, of the Bible through Dr. Michael Heiser's work, and that sparked my interest and got me reading all this different kind of stuff. But honestly, I can definitely say people that are turned off by history and things like that, these historical fictions really grab these people and pull them in. A friend of mine, Brian Godawa, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he does historical fiction too, and he covers the War of the Watchers, and I think he just recently done one called on the War of the Maccabees. Because, like you said, this is something that's in the histories, it's predominant and worth knowing, and ties in a lot of loose ends to scripture and historical context. But it's, like you said, it's very dry and bland and kind of hidden away, so you got to try to put lipstick on the pig, so to speak, and get people interested.
Yeah, so this picks up right where the New Testament leaves off. The New Testament kind of ends with Paul in Rome in prison, and this picks up in the year 63, where our main character, Joseph, who is Josephus himself, he goes on a boat ride over to Rome and runs into some other characters, which become the main characters of the whole story. And in book 2, our Roman soldier character ends up in Rome as a Praetorian guard assigned to the prison, and runs into Paul in prison. And so this whole story kind of picks up where the New Testament leaves off, and that next 7 years is incredibly packed full of things going on, and drama, and a rebellion, and Jerusalem's under siege, and just incredible amount of, and details too, because this guy Josephus wasn't just sitting on the sidelines writing. He was an intimate player in everything that was happening.
Yeah, and for those that's not familiar, I guess I'll tee it up for you, but some people seen him as a great historian, and some of the locals seen him as a Benedict Arnold, a traitor.
Yeah, that's right.
He was kind of a one foot in both lanes,
He was a well-educated Jew that's lived his life in Jerusalem, and well-educated meaning he could speak Greek and Latin and knew history and all of these kind of things. And after the rebellion started, this was another surprise. I always thought, well, the Romans came in 70 and cleaned him up, and that was it. But the whole thing started earlier, back in 66. When the bad guy, who's sort of the antagonist of our story, who's the Roman governor that got assigned there, his name was Gessius Florus, and he was just going over there to pick a fight. Like a lot of the other Roman governors, they could make money by skimming a lot off the taxes. So he decided he was just going to go straight for it, though. He was going to raid the temple because he knew the temple had a lot of gold in it. But the rebels fought him off. And they decided they had had enough at that point, and they managed to kick the Romans out of Jerusalem and Judea in the year 66. So Judea got independent for a few years there, but of course Rome wasn't going to put up with that. Mm-hmm. And this is Nero who's emperor, and so instead of sending only one legion to try to retake Jerusalem, he gets his best general, Vespasian, and sends 4 legions to do the job slow and right. That means the first thing they were going to do is attack Galilee. So in Jerusalem, they decided that Josephus should be the general that helps the rebels defend Galilee. Well, that was kind of a hopeless cause, but he goes up there to do the job. His little town gets put under siege, and he gets captured by the Romans. And he makes this messianic claim to Vespasian. He says, I saw you in a vision, and we have this prophecy that says one will arise out of Israel and rule the world, and I think you're that man. So he doesn't apply that to Jesus. He's applying this to Vespasian. Well, that I guess impressed Vespasian enough. He didn't have him killed. He had him kept around. He thought he might be useful. This really educated man.
You think that was a tactic, like he was lying just to try to save his skin?
That's a big debate, right? Did he really have this vision or not? But he gets kept in prison, and then 2 or 3 years later, so Rome kind of breaks down into the civil war. Of course, Nero dies, right? And he doesn't name a successor, so now you got all these generals that they want to take turns being emperor. And there's a civil war. They call it the Year of the 4 Emperors because 4 different emperors and guys in line came in and got booted out. The last being, which was Vespasian. Vespasian does become emperor, just like Josephus predicted. So they suddenly have this new respect for him. They break his chains out. They say, sorry, you knew what you were talking about. But Josephus decides he sees himself now as maybe a self-appointed liaison to the Romans to help save Jerusalem, because he realizes that the army that Rome has, that Jerusalem will never survive this. So what really needs to happen is we need to negotiate some kind of peace. Of course, the rebels wanted nothing to do with that. And of course, the rebels lost. What this does is it makes Josephus look like he's over there helping the Romans, giving them all our secrets, right? So he basically was proclaimed by the rebels as a traitor who had switched sides. Mm-hmm. So for centuries, Jews saw Josephus as somebody who was a traitor. But on the other hand, when he got to Rome after all of that happened, he spent a few years writing down all of this history for the Jews. The larger one's called Antiquities, and that basically parallels the Old Testament, but he writes a lot of interesting side notes in there. But then the second one is this one, The War of the Jews, which is all about the Jewish history there in that last 100 years before the destruction. So he does the Jewish people a huge favor, because without all of that written down, we would know a lot less about what happened at the time. So.
Oh yeah, and that's honestly I'm guilty of. I have a copy over here, and I have Logo software, but I've just kind of skimmed it, for references.
Yeah.
If I was searching something, I would just kind of hit Control F.
I knew kind of the exact year or two I was looking for, so I kind of could zoom in first and then read kind of what happened there, and incredibly dramatic details of what's going on. So. Yeah, we try to make these novels a page turner, right? So really keep the tension and suspense going. We've got 5 main characters. 2 of them are women who are trying to be part of the rebellion in one way or another. But in fact, we decided we were going to give him a younger sister, right? Mm-hmm. And his younger sister, after being attacked by Romans in one of the tunnels in Jerusalem, is rescued by one of the members of the Sicarii. The Sicarii were a group of secret Jewish assassins at the time who sort of trained in martial arts, and they would assassinate Roman collaborators. They thought Jews who were Roman collaborators. So she joins this secret society of assassins, and by night she sneaks out to follow orders to try to assassinate people, but during the day she's living with her family and they don't know any different, so makes for some exciting things going on.
Right. Were they like a sect of like the Essenes, or was that just like Hollywood stuff? Because I remember that show.
No, the Essenes and the Pharisees, and those were all real groups. The The Sakari were a real group, but they were not really a religious group. They were just a political group, right? Trying to help free Judea. So.
Are you a hunter, a hiker, or just an outdoor enthusiast? Well, if you are, you know that good quality gear is hard to come by. And finding all-American made is like finding Bigfoot in the woods. Hence the name of Squatch Survival Gear. Head on over to squatchsurvivalgear.com. Use the code PLP10 for 10% off store-wide.
I remember that show, I can't remember the name of it now, but that popular one about Jesus and the Holy Land, but they had like one of the apostles.
The Chosen, the recent one?
Yes. They had one of the apostles. He was an Essene, but he was training to be like an assassin.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. They have one of him. They have one of his, which one is it? Simon the Zealot. They have him actually being part of the Sakari, which is a little bit of artistic license because the Sakari didn't start up until a few years after that, but makes an interesting connection. They were certainly zealots that were trained in hand-to-hand combat, right? So.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, with your research though, what's some things that popped out to you that took you by surprise? That because I wrote my first. I've been researching and studying stuff for a couple of years now, but I just wrote my first book this year, and every little rabbit hole I go down, there's at least one, sometimes two, things that I find that are just so like mind blowing that I have to like pace the floor back and forth and call a couple of friends and aggravate them. You know, I didn't know if you've had any of those moments with your research. Hey guys, if you enjoyed that, I'm about to really blow your mind. That was just a highlight reel. Hit the links down in the description for the Spotify or Apple and get the full conversation. Because that was just the tip of the iceberg, baby. Torch is high.